Thanks for being with me today. Just a quick intro for the viewers. For those of you who don't know, Tony, well, aside from being one of the biggest Italian soccer fans in the Lower Mainland, Tony owns one of the largest real estate specific law firms in the Lower Mainland. So this is what you do all day and every day. And Tony, one of the things I really love about your business model, like mine, is that you understand that it's not so much the transaction as it is the process that's really important. I mean, let's face it, there's lots of lawyers, notaries, realtors, and brokers, for that matter, that can get their client from point A to point B similar to a taxi cab driver, but it's really about how you get them there. It's the process. And I love that fact, and that's one of the reasons why your business, like mine, is by referral. So enough of that. Let's cut to the chase of why we're here today. We know, well, as most probably know, the HST Harmonized sales tax is coming down the pipe July 1st, 2010. And let's talk about how it's going to affect the real estate transaction.
Sure, yeah, and I think we can start off by breaking it down into two main types of issues or properties. Let's talk first about clients who are buying or selling a used residential house, okay, and then we'll get into a new home in a few minutes. For clients that are buying or selling a used house, it's really not going to have that much of an impact. For a buyer, they're going to pay HST on certain things they're not paying for now, whether it's an appraisal, an inspection, moving services, that kind of stuff. But generally, if an appraisal is $500, they're going to pay another 7%, it's $35 more. So it's not a deal breaker. So on a purchase of a used home, the effect isn't going to be that dramatic. Lawyers and notaries have been charging PST and GST for years, so our fees don't go up. So it's not going to be that dramatic for someone buying a used residential house. For a seller of a used house, again, those incidental services will go up. The bigger item there, though, will be the real estate commission. So if the realtor's charging, there's no standard commission nowadays, but right, most tend to gravitate towards 7 and 2.5 or 7 and 3. Up until today, they were charging GST at 5%. On July 1st, they will be charging HST at 12%. So realtor commissions will go up by 7%. Now, the realtor doesn't pocket that, of course. The government's going to pocket that. So the seller is going to pay a little bit more on the sale. But if you're, if we're talking Greater Vancouver or the Okanagan or Victoria, where house prices are significant, I don't think that's going to stop someone from selling their house. The fact that it's going to go up 7% on the real estate commission. Right. Where it's really going to have an effect is on the purchase or sale of a used house, of a new house. I'm sorry, it's not even the sale, because the sale again is not that much more, but on the purchase. For a client who's buying a new property, it could be dramatic, it could be significant, and it may affect the type of home or the price point of a home that a client can afford. For anything under $525,000, the government claims that it will not increase the tax because they're giving a rebate of $26,250. And if you go on our website, bcrealestatelawyers.com, there's some examples there of different price points and how the numbers work. So it won't affect that much in terms of pricing for a new home up to $525,000. Over $525,000, though, you're basically looking at 7% more. Significant. I think the example on our website, I think the purchase price we used was $900,000, which is a lot of money, but in Greater Vancouver, Kelowna, Victoria, it's not out of line anymore. Right. And I believe it's about $35,000 more the client's going to pay for the HST. Don't forget, this is in addition to the property transfer tax. Property transfer tax has not been eliminated with the HST coming in. So in addition to the $35,000 extra dollars they're going to pay, they're going to pay on a $900,000 house another $18,000 in property transfer tax. So the taxes are significant. Certainly on a new home, absolutely.
Right. Now, if you could, there's obviously July 1st is the date for HST. Yep. Is there any grandfather dates? I mean, obviously in Vancouver and around the Lower Mainland, we've heard a lot about these pre-purchases, condos and things like that that are, haven't even been built yet. Do you know anything about the dates there?
Yeah, any contract signed or executed prior to November 18th, 2009 is grandfathered. So any contract, like a pre-sale you mentioned, Mark, prior to that date, any contract written prior to that date, there will be no HST payable and will carry on under the old regime, the old tax structure. Any contract entered into after November 18th, 2009, the HST will apply.
Okay. Now, the first example you talked about before November date, that is regardless of when the completion and possession date is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. HST applies to homes that where ownership and possession occurs after July 1st. But if the contract is signed prior to November 18th, even if completion is 2 years down the road, some of these high rises downtown that aren't going to close for a while, there will be no HST on those transactions.
So in essence, November 18th, 2009 was that magic grandfather date in terms of if your completion is after the HST comes into effect.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we talked just briefly about closing costs. So the HST, if I understand you correctly, doesn't affect the legal fees?
No, because for years, 7, 8, 9 years now, lawyers and notaries have been charging GST at 7.65%, whatever the relevant time was, or 7. And in addition to that, they've been charging 7% PST.
Right.
So we've been charging the 12%. We've shown it as two different taxes, but lawyers and notaries have been charging that for years. So that's not going to go up. That won't change at all.
Okay. But other closing costs, like you said, moving costs, legal fees, home inspections, that's all going to have the HST included.
Absolutely. I haven't researched, hydro bills, phone bills, Shaw cable, all that stuff. Presumably those will go up as well. The general rule that I've come to learn is if you charge GST, you're not going to charge HST.
Okay.
So anything like that will go up.
Now, that magic number of 525, was it on a new home sale?
Yeah. Yes.
So anything under 525, there's no HST whatsoever?
Well, no, there is HST, and we calculate it out. It's almost like the property transfer tax, where you calculate the amount of tax that would have been payable for a first-time buyer, but then you claim a rebate. Okay. So the actual paperwork hasn't come out yet. We don't know exactly how it's going to work, but the government is giving everyone, in their goodness here, a rebate, a credit of $26,250, which is supposed to represent the HST up to $525,000. So I presume what's going to happen is we'll just take that off the top. So the client's charged $26,000. The client receive a rebate from the government, $26,000. They pay $0 to the land title office on completion. We're not sure of those details yet.